planning our trip to Yellowstone, we had checked the weather and it looked like it was going to be 70 degrees and sunny the entire trip. Once we got up into the Utah area, we decided we should probably check the weather again. The weather had changed and it looked like we were in for some cold, possibly snowy weather, so we stopped and got some cold weather gear. Definitely made the right decision there. Crazy how much the weather can change in the matter of a week, and we had left triple digits back in Arizona. I've ever seen right here.
So I was kayaking on this lake like 10 years ago, same time of year, and right now it has got ice on it. So our first major stop at Yellowstone was to Mammoth Hot Springs. And it's one of my favorite spots because it is just beautiful. You have all these really cool bacterial mats that create all the different colors there. And I guess it's the only spot in Yellowstone where all of the water deposits travertine as the type of rock. So anywhere that you see all of the white is actually what the travertine really looks like on its own without the bacterial mats on top. There's this beautiful steam that rises up everywhere that you could really see on the freezing cold day that we were there. It was hilarious. Like, all of these people walking around were all in these big puffy coats looking bitter cold. It was very, very windy. It's a much bigger place than it appears when you're there. There's all these boardwalks everywhere, and you can walk for quite a long time. There's an entire upper area that you can walk around. There's a lower area. There are a lot of stairs to climb, and since the altitude at most of Yellowstone is pretty high, it's like around 8,000 feet most of the time, it can be pretty tiring to walk around, but I think it's totally worth it. One of the most picturesque things around Mammoth Hot Springs are the dead trees. Some of them are buried quite deep in the travertine, and it's pretty interesting to imagine how big they used to be at one point. We also loved these like hilarious birds that kept showing up, and they look like angry birds. This is Mammoth Hot Springs as seen from the road. You can see here how large it really is. If you look at these elk, you can actually see that there's a baby elk on the very side. our campsite in Yellowstone National Park. We are at Fishing Bridge.
So earlier this year, I had gotten a new spotting scope that I was eager to play with. I also got an adapter called the phone scope that allowed me to adapt my spotting scope and attach my phone to it. So I set it up on a tripod. This elk you're looking at here was about 400 yards away. And you can actually see the light refraction from just the amount of air and the temperature differential between the river and the ground and the heat rising up from the sun. Causing it to look like heat waves, almost like a mirage you would see on the road in the summer.
So we were trying to figure out why the traffic wasn't moving, and it's because this guy's just walking down the street, just hanging out, having a grand old time. The traffic jam that this buffalo caused, they're all trying to drive behind him. It's still going.
So when we first arrived in Yellowstone, the road to Dunraven Pass was still closed due to snow. We kept our eye on it, and it just opened up on the second day. We hurried up that way to try and beat the crowds. Our first trip to Yellowstone 7 or 8 years ago, we did not make it up to this part of the park, so we were eager to check it out. Unfortunately, this part of the park was affected by the flooding that happened just 2 weeks after this video was taken. It wasn't seriously damaged. I think they just closed this part due to mudslides, but the road down to Gardner was completely washed out. Hey, Lauren. So, not far from the Roosevelt Lodge, we encountered a bear jam. Man, I felt sorry for this park ranger. His efforts were absolutely futile. There was people just parking their cars in the middle of the road, wandering away, with no care for anybody else whatsoever. This may look like it was a peaceful moment in nature, but it was absolute chaos. We managed to find a parking spot though, parked off the road, grabbed my spotting scope, my tripod, got set up. This was a really cool area. There was a group of bison about 50 yards off. There was elk wandering around down in the middle, and then there was these really cool cinnamon bears. Cinnamon bears are basically black bears, but they have kind of a reddish brown color. Got set up and sitting there filming, and I was actually gathering a crowd around me. People were coming up to look at the animals in my spotting scope because they couldn't get any closer and they wanted to get a good up-close look. So while we were set up there, I was filming these bears. The bears were on the other side of the pond from us. They were probably 250, 300 yards away. But there was a group of people that were sneaking around the other side trying to get up close to the bison, the baby bison, and the poor park ranger had to go and chase them off and scold them and, remind them that these bison are actually wild animals and people get gored routinely. While we were there was actually a goring that happened at one of the geyser fields. So I opened the door about midnight, and it was actually snowing in the RV park. This is, a little lower elevation, and there wasn't any snow on the ground there when we arrived. But here it is in June, snowing in Yellowstone. There was actually a guy came around to all the campsites and asked us to disconnect our water feeds because the pipes freeze at night when it's that cold.